I'm not going to bother re-explaining what Signal is. I'm sure most of you guys already know what it is. It's just an encrypted messenger, right? And Signal's under a lot of fire right now because they are currently working on adding a optional one-time payment that you can choose where you don't need to register with a phone number, and instead you can just pay a couple bucks and you can sign up for Signal without even needing a phone number. So if you guys don't know, Signal requires a phone number, typically, at least right now, and it's completely free, but it requires a phone number to sign up because they send you a one-time verification code to verify that you're a human, and it's used to help combat spam. So they actually talk about this here. So the Signal CTO, Ehren Kret, I don't know how to say that, said that Signal needed to find a way to induce a cost for signing up without a phone number. They talked about, why there's even a phone number to begin with, and they mention it's to prevent abuse. So at the time, it was unclear whether this cost would mean a mandatory fee or another type of barrier designed to prevent abuse, but now we've uncovered more details about the feature, so you can go read this full thing if you'd like. But the way I actually learned about this was from International Cyber Digest, who posted basically the same information, but then also mentioned that there's unreleased code in Signal's public Android repo, which describes a Signal login purchase screen, and users either make a one-time in-app payment or register with an account key they already own. And Signal hasn't announced it yet fully, but as you can see here in the repository, you can see that they're starting to work on that. There is a Signal login payment state class and even comments about it and whatnot. This whole situation has been sparking a lot of controversy, though. This whole situation here with the credit cards and everything, I've seen a bunch of people complaining like, oh my God, this is such a dumb idea because can't you just be traced back to your credit card number or whatnot? No. So it's actually very feasible and already is done by many privacy-focused services. It's fairly simple, actually, to create a service where people pay, whether with credit card or whatever, through a payment processor, and then the actual account that's generated isn't linked directly to that credit card. That's pretty feasible. That's technology that already exists. Now, just saying, we don't store credit card information doesn't necessarily mean that the account can't be tied back to the payment, because if you get certain time-stamped records and you get certain information like that, you can correlate it with purchases from the payment processor and then link the information together. There's two important distinctions to make there. First, you can just go down to your local CVS or something, buy a gift card with cash, buy a bag of chips with that gift card to activate it, and then go buy Signal with that credit card. And then that, gift card isn't correlated to any direct name or anything like that. Or alternatively, you could just not do it at all and just stick with the free phone number option. I feel like a lot of people have online talking about this have been treating it like this is now going to be the only way to proceed with Signal, that it's the end of the world, right? Because this is now what Signal is doing. Signal is keeping the free phone number option entirely. Like, as far as I'm aware, there's no plans to get rid of that. This is just a secondary option for those who don't want to provide their phone number, which I think is completely understandable. And I think that a service like Signal wanting to find some ways to just try to make some money in a transparent manner like this is perfectly acceptable. I feel like a lot of people want to have their cake and eat it too, in a way where they want like these super great privacy focused services and stuff like Signal, but then don't want to have to pay for anything ever. And this really is honestly just a large issue with just digital stuff in general. If you look at what Signal is doing, they're keeping the route that already exists and they're just adding another way that also helps make them a bit of money, which I'm sure helps sustain their infrastructure costs, which to my understanding, they have pretty high infrastructure costs. I mean, bandwidth isn't cheap, storage isn't cheap, and I know sure as shit that SMS verification shit isn't cheap either. So it's I think that's completely understandable if Signal's trying to approach it this way. I don't see anything wrong with that. And if you're concerned about companies having to make money to sustain themselves to run the infrastructure for stuff like Signal, you don't want them to have to charge money or anything like that to sustain themselves, then stick to decentralized services, because centralized services fundamentally rely on a central entity to survive and to maintain that infrastructure. And if you don't have that entity to survive and maintain that infrastructure, then you don't have the service. So that inherently ties the service's existence to that company. So either you need to, sustain that company to keep that going, or your product just dies. So that's a fundamental flaw with centralized infrastructure compared to decentralized infrastructure, which can outlive its original creators. I don't see any problem with this. I'm very curious what you guys think, because as far as I'm concerned, there is no plans to get rid of the old free method. They're still offering the paid version. They're not going to be directly tying your financial information and credit card information and stuff back to you. Technically, if you're concerned about like the technicals of, well, this could technically be correlated back or whatever, right? Then either just use the free option, or just like you already have been able to this whole time, or just go down to the CVS and buy a gift card or something, or use like privacy.com, whatever, like those, virtual cards. I know a lot of banks actually provide digital cards out of the box, so just use a virtual card or something. Like, you see what I'm saying? I feel like this whole circumstance is really being blown out of proportion. Also, just a little bit of extra information, just a little tidbit here. Signal is a nonprofit organization. And the reason why I bring this up is that Signal fundamentally doesn't have any investors they're trying to like appease with, maximizing their profits. They're not walking away with any kind of profit from this. So this situation would be a little bit different if it were a for-profit organization, because clearly that would mean that you could argue that, oh, they're just trying to nickel and dime for their profit margins, right? But Signal fundamentally is nonprofit, meaning that they have to end the year with $0 of profit earned. They can still behave like a for-profit organization, right? They still are just a company. But it does mean that they're legally not supposed to be making any kind of profit or whatever. So they have to spend all the money that they earn. And that's just kind of an important tidbit, I think, because it does help put this a bit more into context. Let me know what you think. I think it's just kind of a load of malarkey. I see nothing wrong with this. That's about it.